Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session. We'll give everyone just about 30 seconds to filter in, and then we will get started with today's presentation. We appreciate everybody joining us today. I realize for some of you, it is still the start of the workday. For some of you, it is about lunchtime. So appreciate your time, no matter what part of your business day that you are in. Let's go ahead and get started. So hello and welcome to today's session, Advancing Women in Manufacturing. I'm Megan Coniff, Director of Content at Thomas, and I am thrilled to be here today with this group of inspiring and influential leaders in U.S. manufacturing and technology. So we are going to start today sharing some key data points from our 4th annual Career Advancement Survey and Report. This is a report that we did in partnership between Thomas, Xometry, and Women in Manufacturing. Allison Grealis, President and founder of Women in Manufacturing, will share her insights on the themes of the survey, including recruiting and retaining women in manufacturing and how we can inspire more women to join the industry. Then we will kick off our panel discussion featuring Joanna C of Daimler Truck North America and Jana Gessner of Pepsi Co. We'll learn about their pathways into the industry and their insights on how companies can both integrate and celebrate diversity in industrial workplaces. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. We want you to feel free to participate. We realize you may not be able to see each other, but feel free to drop questions into the question box. If we can't answer them in real time, we will have a few minutes at the end of the presentation for questions. And if you have a question for a particular presenter, please feel free to indicate that when you ask. We're also going to have some opportunities to answer some live polls. These are fully anonymous. Our producer, Brooklyn, will cue the poll, and then after a few moments, we will have the opportunity to see the results in real time. So very much appreciate your contributions there. The presentation itself will last about 45 minutes, maybe an hour, but after the presentation, we'll be sure to share the recording as well as a new resource that we have created with Women in Manufacturing called Mastering the Art of Employee Engagement in the Industrial Sector, just sort of a do's and don'ts for managing in the industrial sector. And we're excited to share it with you today. Right, so let's start with some intros. As I said, my name is Megan Coniff. I head up content for Thomas and Xometry, including our daily email newsletter, Thomas Industry Update, which highlights all the manufacturing news you need to know. And we are joined today by Allison from Women in Manufacturing. Allison, would you care to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Allison Grealis. I'm the founder and president of the Women in Manufacturing Association and Education Foundation. I've been working with manufacturing companies and trade associations for more than 20 years. And our association is excited to partner again with Thomas and Xometry on this very important research.
Right. So if you were unfamiliar with Xometry, it is a digital manufacturing marketplace that uses AI to provide instant quotes and lead times on custom manufacturing. All you have to do is upload your digital CAD file to our instant quoting engine. You can choose from over 20 different processes like 3D printing, machining, etc. I also work with Thomas, which is North America's #1 industrial sourcing platform. We serve professionals on both sides of the industrial buying process, so both buyers and suppliers, to create solutions that inform and support industry. We also have a women-owned filter, women-owned business filter. So if you are looking to support a women-owned supplier, you can go to thomasnet.com and very easily find one that suits your needs. Allison, can you tell us a little bit about Women in Manufacturing?
Sure. So Women in Manufacturing Association, we are the only now global trade association dedicated year-round to supporting, promoting, and inspiring women in industry, as well as the companies that employ women in industry. We have members now in every U.S. state and in 70+ unique countries, and we represent people from all walks of the manufacturing spectrum and workforce. And we very much focus on helping to advance women in industry and finding solutions for companies as they work to attract and retain and advance their female talent. We have lots of resources for both individual and corporate members, including some of the things outlined here. One of our most popular resources would be our chapters, to which we have 33 of them throughout the country. They provide local access to education, training, and networking. And as well, we have many recruitment resources that manufacturing companies utilize, as they're looking to seek and attract female talent.
Fantastic. Thank you, Allison. All right, so let's start talking about our survey. This was the fourth annual survey that we have done together, and it was conducted over the course of January. I think it's great that we do this survey on an annual basis because it really allows us to track the numbers and the trends as they change. Sometimes there are big improvements, and then sometimes we see a consistency that speaks to the fact that things maybe aren't changing quickly. So I'm excited to delve into some of that with all of you today. We had just under 1,000 respondents who were qualified for the survey, and they range from company type, from small to medium-sized businesses to large organizations. In fact, about 30% of the respondents come from organizations that have more than 15,000 employees. The type of manufacturer also really ran the gamut, everything from automotive and aerospace to food and beverage and agriculture. Altogether, just a really nice cross-section of the industry. We asked questions around women's participation in manufacturing, how to retain and engage talent, and benefits and attitudes. We're going to be talking about all of those things today. So our biggest highlight of the survey was that most women in manufacturing recommend a career in manufacturing. And this is a great positive headline for us to start with. 81% of women are likely or very likely to recommend a career in manufacturing. And that's consistent with the 2023 numbers. It's actually significantly up from 2021, where the number was only 75%. So Allison, why do you think this number has remained so consistent over the years?
We find that one of the highlights of working with women in industry is that most by far really find great job satisfaction in their careers and the positions that they hold in manufacturing. I think we find that women find once they enter into a manufacturing career that there's great alignment with personal passion and interest around problem solving and having unique experiences and no job or day ever being the same. So they like the fluidity of not only their daily work, but as well the opportunity that manufacturing careers present. So we've heard for many years now as an association that job satisfaction is high and individual satisfaction, and an opportunity to find new experiences within manufacturing is something that's very much valued. So I'm excited to see that it's even dramatically improved since 2021 when we surveyed the group.
Absolutely. All right, now we have our first poll question. So everyone, get your mouse ready. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Women have made significant progress in the manufacturing industry in the last 5 years. So take a moment to vote, and our producer Brooklyn will push the results live when we have a critical mass. This is a question that we asked in the survey, and we will share the results with you as soon as we see our live results. Brooklyn, you want to go ahead and push the results live? All right. 76% of those of you here today agree with the statement. 7% disagree, and then 18% are not sure. So that really aligns with what we saw in the survey. The survey results show that optimism about women's progress in manufacturing is at an all-time high. So 79% of women report being optimistic about women's progress, with 33% strongly agreeing with that. And that's pretty notable from, let's see, in 2020, only 17% strongly agreeing. So we are seeing an upturn there. Allison, do you expect that level of optimism to continue going forward?
Yeah, we hope that the optimism that was shown here in both our quick poll as well as in the survey continues. I think that the industry has gone through a lot of change over the past decade since we've been around as an organization. Obviously, the industry was dramatically impacted by pandemic, and offering now things like flexibility that we know are highly sought after by women and men in industry and generally the workforce. So we believe that people will remain optimistic about women's progress in industry. And I think the progressiveness of manufacturing companies, the increased progressiveness will help with this increased optimism.
Excellent. So as I said, sometimes you see numbers that you get really excited about when you look at this data. And then sometimes you see numbers that make you go, oh, there's an opportunity here. And this was one of those numbers for me. We asked the respondents to averaged the percentage of employees on their company's leadership team who were female versus male. And just under 23% said there was female representation on their leadership teams, whereas just under 76% said there was male representation. So, we're far from parity here, but there is an opportunity here for improvement. And when we kind of pull the lens back and look at manufacturing as a whole, about 30% of employees in manufacturing are female, according to our survey. So that's closer to parity. We're not there yet, but that is a better number for sure. And we haven't seen a lot of significant change in this number since 2021. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more with the panel later. But Allison, in your opinion, what can companies do to entice more women into manufacturing?
Yeah, so this is something we've been working on, obviously, since inception as an organization. We strive as a group and a now global group to obviously attract more women into industry. When we started our efforts back more than a decade ago, we were at mid to higher 20%. And now getting closer to 30 is great. And we hope to someday, arrive at 50% of the manufacturing workforce being female. One of our, I think, even more significant efforts is around getting more female leaders within manufacturing. So we have lots of devices and now formal programs to help grow more female leaders in manufacturing. And again, we see that, how companies obviously can tackle this is by, recruiting differently. And I think within some of the research and the reports that we've shared, there's obviously different techniques and tactics that can be deployed as we look at how to recruit a diverse workforce. And as well, showcasing female talent. We talk often about you can't be what you can't see. So helping to motivate and inspire those other people in your workplace to showcase what female leadership can look like, and that there is a pathway forward for females at your organization and company. So I think having that modeling, having that showcase of your female talent is really important. And then as well, companies investigating and really looking at how are we hiring, how are we making promotions, and how are we building from within. This great pipeline for the future is really important.
Absolutely. So moving on to our next poll question, which is a nice bridge between the last topic and the next topic. Is your company experiencing labor shortages? Brooklyn has queued a poll, so feel free to vote quickly. Xometry also produces a quarterly survey with Zogby, and we ask US CEOs every time about labor shortages in this industry. And I'm curious to see if those results align with what we're seeing in our quick poll here. All right. 62% report that their companies are experiencing labor shortages. 28% report they are not, and 10% report that they don't know. So that does align pretty nicely with what we saw in our career advancement survey from January. 83% of manufacturing companies are experiencing labor shortages. That is what we saw in our results in January. And when we delved a little bit deeper to find out what types of roles were hardest to fill, the responses were fascinating. The hardest roles reported to be filled are entry-level positions, assemblers and fabricators, maintenance, repair, and operations, and engineers. And the one that really stood out for me was entry-level positions, because it seems like there is a huge opportunity there to bring in people who don't necessarily require experience in these types of workforces. And there's an opportunity for us to recruit at the school level, whether it's high school or upper education, to start to fill some of those positions. So moving on to our third poll question. How did you personally enter the manufacturing industry? And we've got a selection here in the multiple choice. Pick the one that fits best for you. And if nothing fits, feel free to select other. Brooklyn, feel free to share the results whenever we've hit that critical mass. Excellent. Ooh, it really is all over the place. Lots, 27% report job postings, 19% report graduated from a STEM program, 16% report referral from friends or family. Excellent. Well, we asked a lot of questions about this in our survey, and we discovered that most people, both male and female, do not intentionally seek out the manufacturing industry. They kind of stumble into it, they fall into it. And that's fascinating given our first headline that we talked about how much satisfaction women get out of these careers. 71% of women who enter the manufacturing industry do so unintentionally. And then when we look at the reasons, or the methods, I should say, that women and men seek out manufacturing careers, that data is very different too. Women cite job postings, co-op programs, and recruitment. And we saw that in our quick poll just now. And men tend more to cite responsibility for a family business, apprenticeships or internships, and STEM programs as their top reasons for joining the industry. Now, our final question, or our final data point in this section, is a new one for us. We haven't asked this question in the past. We asked everyone if they agreed that workplace diversity improves business outcomes. And we defined business outcomes as being increased revenue, less staff turnover, improved products, culture, et cetera. And 90%, an overwhelming majority of women agree or strongly agree with that statement. So Allison, turning to you again, how does the work that women in manufacturing do help advocate for the value and importance of women in the industry?
Yes, our organization year-round, we celebrate women in industry and the value that having diverse leadership teams and diverse workforce can have not only on business outcomes, but also on the efforts underway to retain talent and to advance those people that are at your organization. So, we've strongly believed since inception that diversity matters. And it's great that the industry and people now, I think even more than ever, see this value of having diverse teams and groups at your organizations. So it's something we talk a lot about. We also do some training that relates to obviously DE&I through at many of our platforms, including our virtual learning series that's powered by our Education Foundation. This year at our annual summit, which is our big flagship program, which is October 6th through the 9th in Boston, we have close to 70 educational tracks. Many of them will be covering topics, including the importance of diversity in the workplace and in manufacturing companies.
Fantastic. Thank you, Allison. All right, so we are moving on to our panel, and I am excited to introduce our two panelists, Joanna C. Cooper of Daimler Truck North America and Jana Gessner of Pepsi Co. So let's start by having everyone introduce themselves. Joanna, can you kick us off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your current role?
Yep, absolutely. So I'm Joanna Cooper. I am the general manager of the Mount Holly truck plant for Daimler Truck North America. I know that's a mouthful. If you do not know Daimler Truck North America, we are part of Daimler Truck AG, and we build Freightliner, Western Star trucks, Thomasville school buses. Sometimes you'll see our RV going down the road with a Freightliner symbol. So in essence, our purpose is for all who keep the world moving, right? We are one of the largest truck manufacturers in the US as well as in the world. I came out of Detroit. I always like to put that in my story. I grew up, born and raised and educated in the Detroit public school system. Went to the University of Detroit Mercy, where I obtained my bachelor's and master's degree. And for the last 16 plus years now, I have been working in various roles across Daimler Truck AG.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joanna. And Jana, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your current role?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Jana Gessner, and I lead environmental health and safety globally for Pepsi Co. In case you're not familiar with Pepsi Co, big, massive food and beverage company. Hopefully you're familiar with some of our favorite brands, Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Gatorade, Fritos, Cheetos, Doritos, all that good stuff. So we have a large footprint across the world, both moving, and selling our products. I've been in environmental health and safety and in manufacturing for, I hate to say, probably over about 30 years. And very similarly to Joanna, I grew up in the Toledo, Ohio area, which is close to Detroit. Went to school at the University of Toledo and then got my master's in chemical engineering from Wayne State in Detroit. So I've spent some time in automotive, but have landed in the food and beverage area. Really, really love to be there as well. So very excited to be on the panel today.
Excellent. And actually, that's a great segue. We were just talking about the data showing that 71% of women enter the manufacturing industry unintentionally. So I'd like to ask each of you individually, how do you describe your pathway to the industry? And Joanna, let's start with you.
So I'm a part of the 71% that probably fell into the industry versus pursued the industry. You know, when we go to college, it's not necessarily something that is even ingrained in us as women as a possibility of career opportunities is doing something in the manufacturing space. A recruiter called me one day and said, "Hey, I found your resume somewhere out in the internet. There's an opportunity at Detroit Diesel that I think that you would be a good fit for." So I started out on the peripheral of the manufacturing floor and purchasing with Detroit Diesel. And then just through a series of saying yes, I got an opportunity to do a lot of different things, including do an expat assignment in Germany, doing global procurement, doing project management, and then just continuing to say yes. I made my way to the factory floor, actually leading in the assembly operations. And so I would say it started out on a peripheral. You know, I was able to build a strong business acumen just through saying yes and being willing to do new things and meet new people. And then finally, like that, keep saying yes until you actually find your purpose. Because once you find your purpose, then it really is a fit, right? It really feels like it was something that you were meant to do. And then that's where really all the fun comes in.
That's fantastic. And it's funny because I bet that 71% of women all have had that experience where they said yes to a job maybe they wouldn't have actively pursued. And then, you know, we see that optimism level so high for everybody. So that's fantastic to see that present in your story. Jana, what was your pathway to the industry?
Very similar, 71%. I fit in that place, but I will tell you that like many of us on the call today, my dad worked his whole life in manufacturing plants. He was a tool and die maker, so was in the automotive industry for a while. And what got me into manufacturing was seeing all the diversity of manufacturing. When I think about taking a raw ingredient and going through these complex processes and all these supply chain inputs, outputs, it just really excites me to be a part of that whole input output of manufacturing. So for me, it's like now that I'm here, I kind of fell into it as well. My father, as I said, was in automotive, so it kind of fit in the area of EH&S to go into manufacturing. And I think about, you know, what kind of inspired me even to get into EH&S is that my dad had amputated his finger when a die block had fallen on his hand. And the funny thing was about that, many of the guys that were colleagues of his had the same situation. So they had amputated fingers, like this was a rite of passage or something to do what he did. And very young, I remember thinking like, you know, I've always been very involved with people. I'm like yellow on the disc assessment. I really like and enjoy being around people. And I thought, what kind of career could I have to help people? And I thought maybe medical, maybe pharmacy. And what I ended up doing was kind of falling into the EH&S space and then just trying to inspire me to do more for people. And nowhere else, I think, is that more important than in manufacturing. So with all the processes and all the inputs, there's risk there too. So finding a role in manufacturing where I can really wake up every day, help people, help the environment, it was a major fit for me for sure. And I think I just get a lot of personal satisfaction on knowing that I'm helping people, helping them go home safely. I know that sounds proverbial, like, you know, we always say that at work, you know, we want people to go home the same way they came to work, but it's true because safety is so important in manufacturing, and being a part of that has just really inspired me throughout my career. So I just love the complexities, love the ability to help reduce risk in manufacturing.
That's fantastic. And I love what you said about how you're a people person and it led you into manufacturing, because I think someone who, maybe a student who's a people person, doesn't necessarily think to themselves, manufacturing is the career for me, right?
Right.
But I think it's fantastic that through that series of yeses, like Joanna pointed out, and you were able to identify the perfect fit for you. Joanna, you have been at Daimler now for 15 years, or more than 15 years. Can you tell us about your decision to stay so long?
Yes, I would say it all started first with it kept me interested. Being a part of a large and global organization, there are a lot more opportunities to do new things. So, you know, every year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, right? You can, have a larger responsibility, take on a special project, right? It kept me interested and engaged, which I think is really, really important. And then over time, I would say that my personal values that I've determined for myself are in very close alignment with the company values. And that's really, really important when I think about longevity and why you stay. There's always opportunities to go somewhere else and make more money, right? But at any given point in time, when your values and the company's values, and you don't quite see that alignment on a consistent basis, and it's not that all the time we get it right, but it's a consistent path towards a better future, then, that's not an organization that I would want to be in. And I am just grateful to have found an organization, or that organization found me 15, 16 years ago, where I do feel that close alignment. And that keeps me where I am.
That's fantastic. So what is one thing that you think, Joanna, has empowered you along your career path at Daimler and even beforehand?
I've had good leaders, more good leaders than I say have had leaders that I learned that I didn't want to be. So that has been really helpful for empowerment. My first manager, Yvette Fatel, taught me the importance of self-advocacy. Her general message was, you need to make sure that she knows, or anyone else knows, what it is that you do. Because a lot of times we like to say that, I'm gonna just keep my head down and be humble. Humility doesn't mean a lack of self-advocacy, right? Humility means, right, that I am always willing to keep learning and growing. And over the course of my career, just having different opportunities, meeting group people and being able to sharpen has been super integral in just building the confidence, empowering me over the course of just the journey. And it still does.
That's excellent. And I think that's useful for anyone on the call who might be, an employer or a manager, how important it is to teach self-advocacy to our folks who are newer to the industry, but then also for anyone who's employed. We all have to learn how to promote ourselves and speak for ourselves. And as you said earlier, make sure that we're aligned with the organization that we're working with. We feel good about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Jana, is there a person or a program that has inspired you along your journey in manufacturing?
I would say that just the profession in general for me has been very inspiring, because I know that I'm helping people. I know that I'm helping the environment. And, we all spend a lot of time in our jobs, right? A heck of a lot of time. So finding something within what you do to make you feel good, to see where you're contributing to what's going on, I think is very, very important. That gives me that personal satisfaction about going to work. And, just you have to enjoy what you do. And if you go to work every day and you're like, wow, this is a lot, probably might not be the right space for you. It might be time to look for something else. But I think, what's inspiring to me is working with all the functional adjacency, other functions within supply chain, within manufacturing. There's such a neat opportunity to learn things that might not be like in your space, right? So I've been, like I said, in EH&S for a long time, but I've learned a ton about operations, about how we make money, how we optimize our productivity, about lean manufacturing and all those things. I think when you stretch your wings and get out of even your functional space and get inspired by seeing what others are doing across the company and learning about how your role fits in with the whole supply chain, with the operations, it just opens up a lot of windows. And you can kind of, even put a couple different functions on to see if you like what they're doing. And maybe you want to do a critical experience and go work in finance for a little bit, or maybe in HR or engineering or operations. I think all those opportunities really help to mold you as a leader and just give you just a wider depth and breadth of understanding of what you do. So I think on a daily basis that, having that, for me, that impact on people, impact on the environment, and just the whole supply chain in general, I think that's just really makes it very inspirational for me.
That's great. I think it goes back to what Joanna was saying again earlier about, saying yes to things, saying yes to learning about a function you didn't know anything about before, or learning from a person you maybe didn't cross paths with before. And there's huge value and inspiration in that, as you said.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I know we have like a script and I usually go off script, but I
You
think
go.
that what Jana also highlighted, and it was another question or a comment in the Q&A, is saying yes builds business acumen. And what do I mean by building business acumen? As you move up in your career, you have to have organizational agility, meaning you have to be able to get things done through both formal and informal channels. So you cannot do that without knowing people. So every time you say yes to a new opportunity, you get to work with new people, you get to sharpen new skills, right? And you get to really understand the breadth of the organization. And when you do that, you are better equipped to lead within that organization. Because when you are a high level leader, no one is going to be there to tell you exactly what decision to make. You have to have the wherewithal and the confidence and the knowledge and the network, right, to be able to make the right decision based off understanding the baseline of the business. So that is why we always encourage women or anyone to say yes, because we want you to grow and build those skills so that you can be dangerous on the other side when you are in a leadership role, or so that you can really go for that leadership roles, because saying yes is what's going to set you apart from someone else that's on the panel.
I love that. It's not just about sitting down and doing your job really, really well every day. It's about seeing what other opportunities they are and really leaning into it. And what I also like about that perspective is it empowers all of us. We're not waiting for someone to hand us an opportunity or tell us what to do or what the goal is. We're taking that on ourselves, and that gives us so much more autonomy and freedom in our growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, Megan, too, I think we as women sometimes feel like because we don't know the space that well, or it's kind of a little bit out of our comfort zone, that we would shy away from those opportunities. And I think it just becomes that much more important to say, hey, I might not know everything about this new space, but I'm going to jump in, I'm going to learn it, and I can do it, and having that confidence. I think that's where women we really need to push even harder to have that confidence in ourselves to do that.
Absolutely. 100%. And hold that thought, because we're going to get to something on that very soon. Before though, real quick, Jana, we've talked a lot about inspiration and how we can be proactive, but sometimes there's value in talking about some of the negative stuff too, right? Those are lessons learned. So is there a roadblock or a difficulty that you've experienced in your career path? And how do you think the industry could remove that roadblock for others?
Sure. Again, spending my vast majority in hardcore manufacturing plants, and I would say early on in my career, a lot more gender bias than what there is now. And I think for me, that was as a young female engineer going out on the shop floor, that's where I hit that wall quite a bit, and working through how do I show up and how do I get past this? So I think, women often encounter stereotypes, sometimes biases related to what their abilities are, roles, suitability for certain positions within the industry. And I ran into those, and I think that there were times where I really kind of felt ignored, or my opinion wasn't taken at face value because I was a woman, and I think that's where that credibility thing we talked about a little bit ago comes into play. It's very important, and I think this is where we can help other women as well. How do you gain that credibility? To get around that gender bias piece? I think for me, it was gaining that credibility. And I think the best thing that we can do as women is to be able to speak the language, know the business cold, get out on the shop floor, know the trade, know the equipment, know our processes. And I think when we do that, that just really increases the credibility that we have with others. So, you really have to speak fluently about our equipment and how we get, what processes are out there, and being able to interact with everybody out on the shop floor. And I think as I did that through my career, as I went out there and I kind of took my guard down and said, hey, it's clear I don't know how to run a power press. You guys are the best operators out there. You've been doing it for 20, 30 years. What I need to understand is how do you do it safely? And then having those conversations where I could learn about the equipment and take the knowledge from everybody on the shop floor and bring that into my space really gained credibility with them. And when we were going to make changes, there's always the propensity of people when there's change coming, whether that's you're going to redesign the line or add in a new type of equipment or a machine guard or something like that. How you present that change and include the front line really gives you that credibility. And I think over time, that I think was probably the biggest unlock for me around getting around that bias, was having those uncomfortable conversations sometime, and being able to be humble and say, I don't know this, but I know you do. Will you teach me? Will you teach? And I don't think anybody ever said no to me. You know, when the people on the floor would want to teach me about what they were doing and things like that, it actually raised them up as well. And it helped bridge this relationship to where you gain that credibility and you can really get in there and do what you need to do. And that's when you can lean on those relationships, like Joanna mentioned a minute ago. Having those strong relationships ends up being very helpful on making change and getting things done along the line. So I think for me, that was the biggest unlock, was knowing the business code, being able to speak the language, and gaining that credibility.
That makes a lot of sense. And, I think people like to talk about their expertise. People like to talk about what they're good at. So that puts us as learners in good position, right? To ask someone for help and, sort of respect the experience that they have. And then we can learn and grow from it as well. That becomes part of our arsenal over time.
And it really helps to raise them up as well. So, you know what I mean? Everybody likes to be recognized for things that they know and things that they do. In those situations, it gave me the opportunity to say, hey, thank you so much for what you've done. You've taught me this, and really give them credit for what their contribution was to the project or to the situation as well.
100%. We got a lot of open text feedback in the survey from women talking about, feeling uncomfortable sometimes trying to promote themselves from within. And a lot of it was around this sort of attitude or this perception, I should say, of a good old boys club, right? And this kind of ties into my next theme, which is around recruiting women in manufacturing. There is a stereotype of manufacturing that I think is rooted in a couple generations ago. It's our grandparents' generation, right? And we saw this feedback in the survey again and again. It's dirty, or it's something that men traditionally do. I think a lot of people don't realize how incredibly high tech and progressive manufacturing actually is right now. And it's so important for us to be able to change the narrative of manufacturing, both internally when we're working in the industry, but in particular when we are recruiting and trying to fill those jobs. So talking about how to reposition manufacturing as a tech-driven industry that drives the global economy, and not this, your grandfather's version of what manufacturing was. So Jana, turning to you again, looking at our data, we can infer that manufacturing isn't yet the go-to career for young women who are entering the workforce, right? So it's important for us to play a role as manufacturers in educating young people about the industry. What are ways that you think we can help start that education early, and what should we do?
Good question. And I think where I think the big unlock is to kind of connecting young women with what manufacturing is and what it isn't. And I think there's so much technology out there now that you can relate manufacturing back to what young women have in their day-to-day lives now, whether that's how cell phones work, how artificial intelligence work, how digitalization works. All of those things that young women are being exposed to in schools, or even, just even there in the world, all those technologies can be applied to manufacturing. So like when I like to go out into high schools and do some STEM discussions with young women, I like to tie in what we do in manufacturing to something in their daily lives, kind of giving them a hands-on experience to engage them in that workshop, that lab, that interaction. So for an example, I was just out in a local high school talking with some STEM ladies. I took a Gatorade bottle, something that we make at our plants, and I said to them, here's what it looks like as a raw ingredient. What do you think this is? And how we can apply STEM technology to this situation, this hands-on experience, to tie in how that works in manufacturing. So we talked about blow molding. We talked about temperature and pressure. So we brought in a lot of those STEM ideas and put that into something that they could actually see hands-on with their hands on what manufacturing looks like. Taking in, like, another example is I bring in all these raw ingredients and say, what do you think this is? And at the end, it comes out to be a Quaker Oat Chewy bar, something that's in their lunchbox. So I think taking what we do on a day-to-day basis in manufacturing and applying that to young women's lives now, I think really is the way to connect them with what it is that we do in manufacturing. There are just so many functions in manufacturing that can be applied to young women's lives. And I'd like to just highlight all of those things, not just the STEM stuff, but also, finance and HR and all those other functions that are part of manufacturing. But I think that really engages them to let them know, hey, we need women. We need your diversity of thought in manufacturing to make it better moving forward.
100%. I love that. So Joanna, as manufacturing is becoming more high tech, companies are having to fight for engineering talent, for talent of any kind. How can we do that? How do we fight for talent in such a crowded landscape?
Well, I think that it's becoming high tech. And then there's also elements of manufacturing where you need different type of talent or personality styles for. So first, I would start with just coming in the door and being competitive from a compensation perspective. A lot of times, right, our structures can be more geared towards advanced technology versus keeping production operations or manufacturing operations moving and making sure that you can attract the best talent that has also the ability to think outside of the box and use critical thinking and problem solving, right? That needs to also be aligned with, the compensation that they can get working in that space. But I don't think money keeps people, but money gets people into the door. The culture is a second thing. So similar to what Jana said with going into the schools, it's also highlighting how aligned the culture of manufacturing can be to certain personality types. For example, I was an athlete. I played Division I basketball. One thing about the manufacturing world, it's like sports. It's wins and it's losses every single day. You know where you stand. You can keep a score. You can see the actual result of the decisions that you make and the work that you do very, very quickly in a feedback loop. And if that is the type of environment that you're looking for, then manufacturing is probably an environment for you. And a lot of times it can find a bridge for people that maybe have gotten out of playing competitive sports, but they are looking for a competitive environment to still be in because that gets they're fuel. You can go and do that. And because of our health and safety initiatives, right? And you can be safe. And you don't have to get injured like you would do if you try to go play like that pickup game of basketball. So being able to translate and communicate and for women, I think we have to get girls sooner. We have to get them in manufacturing facilities and let them know manufacturing is a path long before they get to high school. High school is too late. It needs to be getting to the point, this is my vision, that you have young girls dressing up like X person that works at Pepsi Co or at Daimler Truck or at Stellantis or at GM, right? That's who they want to be for Halloween, because at that point, now we have them.
I think that's a great point. And honestly, fantastic segue. You couldn't have planned it better, Joanna. Because I was going to ask Jana about the Pepsi Co program. She is Pepsi Co. Can you tell us a little bit about that program and how it's designed?
Absolutely. This is just such an exciting program across all of PepsiCo. And what this is it's a recognition platform for women who are working in the frontline roles. And what we're doing is we're rebranding some of our highly visible delivery trucks with their names and faces on them. It is just absolutely so cool. If you can imagine a semi truck going down the road with your face on it and showing what you do in your day-to-day life. And we're designing this to inspire and encourage more women to go into these frontline manufacturing roles. It really recognizes women who are, driving trucks, that are mechanics, that are merchandisers, that are warehouse loaders, all a part of our manufacturing supply chain. And so by putting women, in their work environments, putting photos of them in place of our company brands on the truck, it just really aims to celebrate and empower women, showcase their transformative abilities, but more importantly, I think to help recruit women even more into this space. And in 2024, this year, we had about 24 ladies across United States and Canada who were being honored by having their face on the side of a truck. I'd love to show you some pictures, but if you get a second, just go out on Google, Google She is PepsiCo, hit the image button, and you'll see some of the major brand, or, you know, one of the logos and things that are out on the side of our trucks going all across the United States. So it's really, really a cool visible demonstration of the opportunities that women bring and grow in and can have meaningful frontline careers.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Jana, it looks like we just have to keep the conversation going.
All right. Well, I can just tell you a little bit more about the She is PepsiCo thing. And, you know, and I think what people have asked, like, okay, what comes out of this? And not only is it like recognition of women in this setting as well, but we've had some other big wins. And what I mean by that is that we've seen some results around increased female applications for frontline roles, anywhere between like 6-7% we saw in 2022 and 2023. We've been able to, I would say, broaden that frontline, that engagement scores that we have with our ladies and things like that. And I think more importantly, we've been able to reduce turnover. I would say we've seen some higher turnover rates sometimes in women, and this program has really helped us to take those turnover rates down. And over I'd say like the past 2 years or so, we've had more than 800 frontline associates being promoted to supervisor roles and can tic-tac back to saying like, hey, I saw this and I want to be a part of this movement. This is really, really important. And I think just for us, it's just been a great program to be able to highlight the roles of women across PepsiCo. And it started in our beverage division in North America. And now it's gone to Frito-Lay, and now we're taking it global. So we're like, this is like a big foothold for us to take this recognition platform across the globe. So when you're out on the road, take a look at the trucks going by and look for some of those She is PepsiCo trucks.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, Megan, this is Brooklyn, by the way, everyone. I'm kind of the omniscient producer here. While Megan works on getting back in, she said she had some connectivity issues. We did get a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
I thought we could answer a few of them just so then we'll move into that. So one of the questions we got are, what are some good ways or organizations that women can join to offer their services as a mentor?
I mean, I would start out honestly within your own organization. Like I have a very like structured time frame. I can teach anyone this, but like every day from like 12 to 1, my calendar is blocked from one-on-ones. And I remember a couple of years ago within our executive women's networking group, we had to give like how many hours have we spent in mentoring? If you're not spending those hours within your own organization to mentor, I would say that would be the first place to start. Because that is where you're really trying to build a culture of excellence and a culture that is going to retain women employees and provide access. Secondly, outside of that, then joining organizations like WIM would be also then the next best thing, because you get to meet women outside of your organization that during those mentoring sessions, they may also reverse mentor you. Because they have a different perspective from their organizations, not just from the organization that you're in. So start within before looking outside, and then, you know, start small and join an organization that you feel passionate about, like WIM, and see who you meet from there.
Yeah. I would also add, you know, you brought up the mentorship, Joanna. I think that is such a key piece for all of us as we've grown in our careers. Not only being mentored by other ladies, other men that have been in the roles before, but also what we can do for other women.
Yeah.
I think that's just such an important piece. And like you said, those one-on-ones and finding ladies that are interested in being mentored, the opportunities come up all the time. And I think just having those conversations, and maybe it's, hey, you want me to look at your resume? I can add some comments, or I've done some things around like, if there are mentees that I have that are going to apply for another job within the company, giving them the opportunity to have that kind of back and forth. Like, I'll throw you a question, you come back and tell me how you'd answer that, and then we kind of pick it apart and say, hey, you might want to think about this. You might want to add some thoughts around that. There are so many unique opportunities around project work. How do you take a project and go ask for money? And being able to help guide some other, that might not have the experiences that we have had to say, this is how you pitch a project where you're going to go ask for $1 million to go fund this project. So I think there are very unique opportunities for you as a mentor, and as for me as a mentee as well, seeing and hearing from other leaders in the organization. And you hit on it well, Joanna, that you just got to keep growing every minute of every day, sitting in meetings and watching faces, how people respond to questions, and taking little tidbits from everybody and making the new you. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both. And Joanna, earlier you made a really good statement about just keep saying yes, because that's how you sometimes find yourself in a role you really love. Someone asked earlier, I thought this was really interesting, how did you know when you should start saying no because you had found where you belonged?
I would say I said yes until I knew what I wanted to do. And then that makes it a little bit harder when it comes to, just what I'm saying yes to. The second thing is I also understand the language of competency. And so now when I'm looking at saying yes, I'm looking at what additional skills or experience do I need to build to assemble my package for where I want to go. And so it's a lot more strategic with the yeses because I'm looking for the yes to help build something else in my portfolio or my breadth of experience, or like Jana said, like you see someone and you see how they respond, like, hey, I want to do a type of role that will help to develop that capability. And so I would say you learn you say yes until you know what you want to do. And then you start saying no because you want to strategically apply your yeses to what's going to yield the greatest result.
Great answer. And we also got a question, and this might go a few different ways. What type of role would you recommend starting with in manufacturing, and what certificates have you found helpful along your journey?
So I would say any role, honestly, is a great place to start in manufacturing. I say get in where you feel the most comfortable and where you can apply the skills that you have today to add value to the organization. And then as you're doing that, look for opportunities to fill in what I call the gap. So there's always more work that anybody can do. And we all reach a point where we're not drinking from a water hose because we're not in a new role anymore. We feel more comfortable. And so when you get to that space of comfort, like, okay, where can I maybe learn something else or fill in or help here or help there, to kind of give you an understanding of what it is that you might want to do next. We're still missing, a lot with women going into supervisory roles. You don't have to be there for forever, but it's really, really a great place to be to build the skill of leading teams. I saw a question about how do you set expectations? Go be a supervisor. When you have to clearly set clear expectations for a team and hold people accountable for not meeting your expectations. Like that's where you go and you hone that skill, because it's not hard. It's just a matter of deciding, hey, this is the way we need to go. And this is what good looks like. And if you can't meet good, then we got to talk about it. Right.
I would say the same around operations. Going in at any point in the operations place or that space is huge, because you, as you said, you can learn HR skills on supervisors, how to grow people. You can learn things about the business, whether or not it's, maintenance or engineering, and you can like logistics pieces, understanding about all the different facets of supply chain if you go in operations. But I think it's true. It's important to know like who you are as well. What are you comfortable with around people interactions, or are you more along the lines of, hey, I'm very blue on disk. I need a lot of data. I can bring engineering skills, or is it, the high reds that you need to have strong leadership skills? So I think knowing a little bit of who you are and where the best placement in that whole supply chain manufacturing spaces is really important too. But then once you're in the door, that allows you to go to so many different places and learn other things. I think that's the big challenge I would say to all of you is don't just do what you're comfortable with, go in other areas as well.
Awesome. Thank you both. Before I get into some resources, I wanted to end with one more question. We got a bunch of them, but maybe we'll send some follow-ups after. because we had a lot of questions, which is really great. This is for Allison from Women in Manufacturing. Are opportunities available for university students to engage with local chapters of Women in Manufacturing?
Definitely. So we have 33 chapters throughout the US. We also have started international programming, which I know was also asked in the chat, I believe, or in the questions. We did 4 international programs last year. We just had a program in Canada. So I think the question was around Canada. So we encourage people's participation at all levels of either currently in a manufacturing career or maybe aspiring to be in one. So we do a student membership. It's very low cost, and as well, they are welcome to any of our programs, including those chapter programs we produce. And we even have special pricing for some of our national programs for students to participate. It's a great way, again, to get connected to our network, to maybe find a mentor or someone who might be able to sponsor you and or advise as you're looking for how to enter the industry.
Thank you so much, Allison. And we do have a handful of resources, which will all be shared with you when we share this recording. So we have our 2024 Career Advancement Report, which Xometry and Women in Manufacturing worked on together. We have our playbook, and then Women in Manufacturing, which I did share in a message, a link to that, but we'll reshare it. And yeah, I really wanted to thank you all for attending this webinar. Thank you so much, Allison, Joanna, and Jana, for all of your expertise that you shared with us. And everyone, look for an email where you will get the recording of this webinar, as well as those resources that I just shared with you all. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Great.
everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.